That's a lot like I was saying with the carnival jazz. It has that nice touch to it, and different instruments, I guess, coming together.
I think, for these type of records, I think that, for the most part, everybody's really digging it. I do get criticized, though. You read all kinds of criticism, all the time because you read reviews, and
sure.
Some people are just saying, "Well, it just sounds like a jam," and actually, that is what it is.
What it was, right?
And to me, it sounds like more of a well-constructed jam. Whether or not you like my guitar playing, that's another story altogether. But so many things have already been done, with instrumental music, and so many great guitarists out there. And, jazz artists and Miles Davis. I mean, it goes on and on and on.
And you've done a lot yourself. So it's like after having done a bunch of instrumental records, I can imagine you want to push it into a new spot.
This is really more where my head has been at forever. Like, this is kind of what I was doing a little bit after I was in Santana. Even with the early Journey stuff, it maybe was not as, jazzed out or
right.
in sections or opened up like that because I wasn't that seasoned of a player back then. But that's sort of what I was listening to back then.
You're on that note, your playing has changed so much over time. And one great example I notice is, I mentioned it to you last night when we were hanging out at the Blaisdell, watching the vid of you in the Crater, 77,
yeah.
and you're doing Of a Lifetime.
Right.
And it's a brilliant bunch of notes, dude, that you hit in that. And you think about that version of Neal Schon, and then I think of like some of the shredding moments on this thing where you're just like blistering amount of notes. As you get older, it's kind of like, I wondered this. I was talking to my boss, Bill, who you met. When I look back at old interviews, I'm like, I wasn't that refined yet. I'm a lot better now. When you look back at that old period from when you didn't hit as many notes, is it almost like as you grow up, you find there's more you want to say? I mean, because you just hit so many cool notes now.
Of a Lifetime was very melodic. There were no outside notes in that at all. Just everything was very melodic and sort of bluesy and electric at the same time. And a lot of interplay between, Ainsley Dunbar and myself, his rhythms and the drums. To me, it's always like, with these kind of records, it's between drums and guitar.
Interplay.
Yeah, and letting things kind of float around. And that's why, one of the reasons that I did not use a really great bass player on this record. I knew great bass players that wanted to play on it, and I was like, I played on a couple tracks, and, I'm not like a great bass player, but I just thought, after I listened to it, I played most of my solos on the record, all of them actually, without any bass guitar on the tracks. It was just Smith, myself, and maybe a rhythm guitar.
And then you laid the bass.
And then I put the bass on, and then the guy I was thinking about using was not available. He was gone, and so I have bass, and I play bass a lot, like on some of the demos I do for the band. Actually worked on a lot of parts, like on Don't Stop Believing with Ross. I wrote a lot of those counterpart bass parts that he ended up playing, which came from like Jack Bruce,
kind of things.
And so I just kind of like the concept on this record of doing, more of what Jimi Hendrix was doing in his early records, which is like, letting the drums be jazzy, the electric blues guitar moving around with the drums, and the bass doing more of what I call like a tuba bass, just filling out the bottom end, not necessarily no popping,
right.
No funk, like that, just
maintaining a groove,
like feeling the bottom end, just sitting there.
Right.
Something's got to sit there.
Anchor.
So things, yeah, exactly. You need an anchor so things can move around. And I always admired, Guitar Shop that Jeff Beck did, and we did a tour with him in Japan before. I was in the band Bad English at that time, but we toured together when Jeff was with Terry Bozzio and Tony Himes.
Ooh.
And they had no bass player. It was Tony playing, bottom end on the keys, and as well as, patches, chord patches, and whatever other parts he was playing. And I loved the freedom of what it sounded like on stage because it was uncluttered, If you get busy with drums and you have a busy drummer, you have a busy guitar player, if you have a busy bass player, then all of a sudden it really goes into fusion land, which is not a bad thing, but I just like, to keep things rocking and fusing and, space, a little bit of space.
You mentioned Jimmy, And in our little dialogue, I mentioned Sabbath. Plus, last night I noticed Nice Touch, Heaven and Hell played before you guys went on stage, too. Ronnie James Dio era Sabbath. Blue Rainbow Sky. I have this great thing Neal did, like a track by track, which is nice if you're going to do a track by track with him. And you say, this track is dedicated to Ronnie James Dio the night he died outside my house.
I don't know if I said exactly that.
Well, that's what the thing says on it.
Did I say that?
Yeah, it says.
Well, actually, what I was, if probably it's a little, they took a little bit out of the whole thing that I said. Yeah. And what happened is the night that that Ronnie passed, I live up in Marin County, and I live on this hillside with like 10.5 acres. And I get to watch the sun go down in the mountainside every night. And it's always a beautiful sunset when it's hot out. It's always like these electric skies. And it's like reds, purples, blues, beautiful. This particular night, it was blue. It was like a rainbow, blue rainbow. And I took a bunch of pictures with my cell phone. And this was like years before a year and a half before I went in to record the record. But the picture always stuck in my head because it was so vibrant and colorful. And when, I was with Smith in the studio and said, we need, something that's kind of majestic and slow, like an old Journey ballad that has a lot of space and something that you can soar and play a lot of melody on. I just kind of went like this, and, and I kind of ripped some Hendrix stuff in the front and tried to play, as melodically as I could over some classical chord changes. And he goes, yeah, I like that. And so when I listened to it, that image of the picture came to me, and I just felt a connection with Ronnie for some reason. And, and I went, so that's it. I go, I'm going to call it Blue Rainbow Sky.
Had you had any kind of rapport, personal thing with Ronnie?
Yeah. I met Ronnie back in the 80s. When we did the We Are Stars record.
Oh, yeah, right, Stars, right.
That benefit.
Yeah, with all the different cats.
Yeah,
together.
And he had contacted me. I didn't know him prior to that, but he contacted me to go down to LA and play with all these different guitar players. And I didn't know quite what to think of it because I didn't consider myself a metal guitar player. And, it was like Yngwie and every guitar player under the planet was there. And so I actually tried to get out of it. And I called Ronnie and I go, I don't think I'm going to come. I've been up all night long partying and carrying on, and I'm ready to go to bed. And he goes, no, you have to come. And so he says, really, he goes, you're one of my favorite guitar players, and I really want you on this record. And so him saying that to me, I, jumped in a car and got to the airport and got down there. And he got me in front of the line where I was sitting next to Yngwie. It was funny. And I was having a conversation with him. He's actually a very nice guy.
Yngwie Malmsteen.
He heard a lot of stuff to the contrary, but the day that I spoke to him there, he was really cool. And we were both sitting in line. Ronnie moved me up to the line so I could get back home and get to sleep. And he promised me he would do that. And I was sitting there listening with Yngwie to everybody before us, and they were punching, in the studio, every 4 bars. They'd play a hot riff and they go, oh, punch me in. And it was taking hours, Some people were taking hours for a little solo piece, section, and I went to Yngwie, I said, man, I completely hate recording like that, and I'm not going to do that. I said, I'm going to go in and I'm going to play 2 takes from beginning to end. He can use whatever one he wants. Then I'm going home and I'm going to sleep. And so that's what I did, And Ronnie ended up loving it. And I think, I don't recall exactly, but I know that he used mostly George Lynch and myself.
Yeah, I remember that. That was his USA for Africa kind of thing back then. Right. I remember that.
It was his version of We Are the World, right.
Right. Yeah, that was nice of him. Song of the Wind 2. You close out the album. Kind of neat for Hawaii fans because it's going full circle on our journey, if you will, no pun intended, with Neal Schon, because it's a moment in your life from Santana.
Yeah.
But expounding on it, what made you say, I'm going to do this?
Steve Smith had 4 days to record this record, and we had just finished, all the tracks except for what I called Song of the Wind 2. And before he packed up his drum kit, I go, let's just play a couple, we'll use a couple major, minor chords here like I did in Song of the Wind, and let's just see what comes out, And we just played live in the studio. Igor myself and Smith, and then I put the bass on later. But I just played a live solo, and it just came out like one take like that, and he packed up his drums and left, and I listened to it after I put the bass on, and I go, I didn't know if I was going to put it on the record or not, much like I didn't know if I was going to put Irish Fields on the record, because that was just like a little experiment that I did, you know, in some downtime while Steve was doing something else, and I had, you know, high-tuned guitar, and I just wanted to try something different. And I go, well, I probably won't use that on the record, but I just, you know,
adds a nice texture on there.
Just keep laying stuff down and checking it out later, not so thinking about it before you do it.
This one's for M. It says, did she dig it?
Yeah, she dug it.
Is that her favorite jam?
Yeah,
on the
her
record?
Being Irish, you know, she loved it.
She got into it. As we think about one other final note on that Santana thing. Last time we talked, not last time, I don't know which time, one of the times we did a lot of talking about Santana, and you had said, someday it would be really cool if we could do like a Santana Journey tour or something like that, like a gigantic thing.
I'm still working on it. You know, Carlos and I are probably talking more in the last couple of years, more than we ever have.
Nice.
And so we text each other all the time.
It could happen.
You know, it could happen. It could happen.
And you would like that.
I would love it.
You've gotten to do so much. You're such an accomplished guy. You have so much to be grateful for. You rock this town 5 nights in a row at an arena. You've done that Crater we talked about. You got all these fans that adore you. Is there something that is still calling to you musically that, you know, you're thinking, man, there's this thing, I want to do this project, or there's a guy maybe you really want to still work with that...
You know, I think my work is never done until, you know, I'm 10 toes up. And so, you know, I'm going to be one of those guys like BB or Jeff Beck, you know, I'll constantly strive to move forward. I'm definitely not one to sit in neutral. I think anybody that knows me knows that, or just rest on my laurels that I've, you know, been very successful with the band. And, you know, a lot of people, I think, in my position that have been as successful as we've been together as a band would just play that and play nothing but that. Never worry about making a new record or anything. You know, Don't Stop Believing. It's the biggest downloaded song of the 21st century ever. And, you know, some people will go, that's good enough for me. I don't need to try anymore. You know, my vision for myself and my quest to, like, move forward is like, my feelings are like, you're only as good as your last statement. And so last night was it for me, and Friday will be the next one.
Hey, I hope you have fun today. Was this okay?
Very good.
You enjoy going through the stuff?
Yeah, absolutely.
I appreciate it. 7 times getting to do this with you in Honolulu. It really means a lot to you, my brother. You're a real solid dude. Neal Schon, Journey, The Calling is the album. Stay in touch. Maybe we'll do the band Unplugged in here next time.
All right, Dave.
Is that a nice
cool,
goal?
buddy.
Something
all
to
right,
shoot
cool,
for?
Man. It's great to be here. Thank you.
Thank you.